Hey, Be Better Tribe. This is Julian, your host. Welcome back to episode number 2. I am really excited to be here. I've been thinking about this podcast and doing episode number 2 for the past week. And again, I'm really excited to share some of these learnings for me, some of this inspiration, some of the things and life lessons that I've learned along the road. And excited to provide this, 15 to 20 minute podcast for you weekly to share. Just want to walk through the structure of these upcoming episodes. So what I'm going to do is the first part is going to be what caught my attention the last week. It'll be somewhat of a buy. It'll be something that is a quick hitter that really inspired me or something that I found impactful. The second part will be the core topic, the main segment. It'll be, like I mentioned earlier, it'll be things that inspired me. It'll be that interview with somebody that has made an impact in my life. It'll be things of that nature that I really want to share that hopefully you can walk away with. And the reason for that, I want to provide that story. I want to provide how it impacted me. And then I want to give that, lesson learned. Want to give a takeaway for you to, take that into whatever field, whatever thing you're doing in life, and hopefully it'll give you that inspiration, or it'll just make you smile. That's what it's all about. I'm here because, like I mentioned in the last episode, I really do love talking about these things, and I love discussing all of this because it makes me happier. And I also believe it makes me better. So that's really why I'm here. I'm also doing a engagement piece of the segment. There's a phone number that you can text or call, 831-471-7888. I'll repeat that. It's 831-471-7888. And I picked the 831 to give it back to my roots where I was born in Santa Cruz. And I also forgot it's Julian Alvarez as well as Julian Alvarez. Those for my cousins out there who are giving me some flack for saying it only Julian. Fortunate enough where you can say my name both in English and Spanish. So thank my parents for that. But what caught my eye this week, and I reposted it on the Be Better Tribe podcast, or excuse me, Instagram handle, and it was the story of the dad that had a son who wasn't able to speak, and he wasn't able to walk when he was first born. And it was a story about triumph and not giving up, and how the dad took him on all these Ironman and races, and it always. I love seeing that stuff on Instagram, and that was my buy of the week because it really hit home for me of the power and the strength of that family to stay together, to always do things together, and really push forward. And so if you get a chance, go ahead and go to the Instagram, the Be Better Tribe Instagram, and go check out that video I reposted and posted on the channel. It's 3 to 4 minutes. It really hit home for me, and it was just a really powerful moment this past week that really made me inspired. So wanted to share that with you. But what we wanted to focus on here is the Camino de Santiago. And so we'll go ahead and kick it into gear there. So back in 2014, I was working at Google. It was the time where Google was the top company to work for in the world. I was making really good money. I was in my late 20s. It was 2014. And, what more could I ask for? I was living the life. I was taking the Google buses. I was eating breakfast there. I was eating lunch there. And lunch consisted of anything you wanted. You could go have sushi. You could go have barbecue. You could have Mexican food. You could have a hot dog, hamburger. You could even put in an order at a deli to get a couple sandwiches to go. You can go play basketball with your friends. I even started to drop in on a half pipe. It wasn't quite the big half pipe, but 4 to 5 foot half pipe. And so I was in all, in everyone's eyes, and including my own. Like, I was living the dream. Like I mentioned earlier, I was making more money than I could ever have wished at that point. And I was really proud of myself. My parents came and had lunch there. I was riding the Google bikes, and this is the time when the internship, the movie about Google, came out. And I can tell you, like, one of my coworkers, one of the managers that were leading our organization, he was actually in the movie. It was the volleyball scene, and it's just crazy. Like I was there at that time, and I just had this empty feeling in myself where I wasn't grateful. I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And looking back, it had nothing to do with Google and had everything to do with me. And I just took a moment of time where, I my contract was ending and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just knew inside that I needed to take a break. And there was really a couple different moments that kind of pushed me in that direction. And one of them was my mom recommended the movie The Way. It's Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez. It's about father son disagreements, and one of them takes the journey. I won't tell you too much about the movie, but it was inspiring. It was really cool to see someone take on the Camino, and it was one of those things that like it was just in the back of my head, like, well, cool movie, but like, that journey seems very interesting. Second thing is my father-in-law. He went and rode the Camino, so he took a bike and rode it, and that was a journey that he was going on, and so I was inspired and heard about like why you were doing it, and his eagerness to go, and so that was another like push for me to do something cool. And then the third thing is I one of my favorite authors, Paulo Coelho, he wrote The Alchemist, which is probably his famous book. His first book published was actually called The Pilgrimage, which was his story about his journey on the Camino. It was the book that I was actually reading at that time before I even booked the Camino. And so those three things really kind of pushed me and started the thought process of going and doing the Camino. And so that's really what inspired me to do it. And then so like I mentioned earlier, like I needed a transition in life, and I had the time. I fortunately saved up enough money to go and do a big trip to Europe. And for me it was, I could go to Europe and go and do this big long trip for 2 months and go to different really cool fun cities, and jump on the two-decker bus and kind of party my way through Europe, which sounded fun, it sounded exciting, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I set my sights on doing the Camino and really taking on that journey. And so that's what I did in April. I think I left late April, 2014. Um, Went to the airport, took a flight. I started in London, stayed with a couple friends there. Went over to Paris or Amsterdam, then went down to Paris. And it was 2 to 3 nights per stop, which was fantastic. It was great to see those beautiful cities. And then I took an overnight train from Paris to Saint Jean Pied de Port, and that's where the French way, the Camino de Santiago, which I believe is the most popular route, is, and that's where I started. And starting that journey was one of the most challenging times in my life, because again, going back to my mental state and where I was, I felt like I was missing something. And so the journey really kicked off there in Saint Jean Pied de Port. If you don't know, the Camino is comprised of a 500-mile trek from Saint Jean Pied de Port. Then you end in Santiago de Compostela, and then if you go a little bit farther to Finisterre, that is where the actual you meet the water, and that's the full journey. And story has it that one of Jesus' apostles, St. James, was the one that actually like did that originally, and that's where his remains are at the last church. And that's really a lot where if you follow that religion and you want to do it because of those religious purposes, that is a lot of why people do this. But what I found is a lot of people did the journey because they were eager to find something deeper. And so the 500-mile pilgrimage took me 31 days. It was 15 point something, a little bit of change of miles per day. And it's not like a really technical pilgrimage. It's not, you're not carrying a backpack. You're not carrying a ton of stuff. You're carrying a sleeping bag and a pillow, and then your essentials, change of clothes and all that good stuff, and your toiletries. But Nonetheless, it's an amazing journey. And the way the Camino is comprised of, which I really do feel hit home, was it's broken up into three sections. And during those sections, the first 10 or so days is really the physical element. It's really getting into the physical nature of walking 15 miles. And it's hard, it's tough. I posted on Instagram, the two pictures that I posted were on the first day. And you're walking up the Pyrenees Mountains day one, and I swear it was the coldest I have ever been. It was a sunny day starting. You walk up this really steep mountain, and there's a lot of warning signs of like, if you're not ready, please don't try this trek, because once you hit the mountain, there is no going back. You have to go over, and it is a 15 to 17 mile day, and it is uphill. And even at the top, there was still some snow. And we're talking, this is early May, late April. And so there was a time where probably for 2 hours, I'm climbing up this hill. My hands are freezing cold. My face is like frozen, and you're just trekking along. And you have this moment of time where the sun just broke through the clouds, which is so amazing. I'm somewhat spiritual. My grandfather passed away earlier that year, and it just felt like there was a moment of like uplifting as you hit the peak and then went down, and you stay in these really cool older monasteries and churches and castle like buildings, which is awesome. And they're bunk style, so everyone and grabs a bunk. But anyways, I went over the mountain, and it was just this physical grueling moment. And then throughout the next 8 to 9 days, you deal with blisters, you deal with muscle cramps, you deal with a lot of the weight of the backpack and getting used to it. And so that was the first 10 days. And then the second 10 days is really the mental aspect of it, where you are challenging yourself to think about, the challenges in life that you had, the decisions you made, whether good or bad. And you're really a big reflection, and you're taking that moment where, you're really challenging yourself mentally, and really focused on, in my opinion, it was a moment of mental fortitude and reflection. And it created this space for me to just have the 10 days where it was flat, it was boring, it was very much kind of one step forward each day, and that really hit home there. And then the third section is the spiritual section, where you start to get a little bit deeper in your thoughts. You've already gone through physical, you're feeling good every day, you went through the mental challenges and blocks, and you're kind of set in the Camino, and you don't want it to end because it's so peaceful and you're meeting really awesome people. And so that's really the journey of the Camino, and I couldn't recommend it more. It was amazing for me to do that at such a young age. I was late 20s, like I said. You think you're in your late 20s, you have everything figured out, but you have zero figured out. And the Camino really helped me establish that. But the reason I'm sharing the story is because there was one moment. There was actually two dinners that I'll share here. One of the dinners was so impactful for me because it was myself, American, and there was 5 other different individuals about between mid 25 to maybe mid 30s. There was a Korean, Mexican, Spanish, German, French, and American. So there were 6 of us, and we were all sharing a meal. And it was just a moment in time where the borders were broken. There was nothing else than just connection between people. And I say that because I think it's really important that we think back at like that being one of the elements of human nature. And I just recommend having those moments where you can share meals with people from different walks of life and different backgrounds is important. I think the Camino provided that for me, and it will always be something I remember. But the second meal, which was probably the most impactful for me, was I was sitting at a table. The average age of the Camino is probably over 50, between 50 and 60. So I'm 28. I'm kind of the odd man out, but I'm sitting at a table with 3 other gentlemen, and they're talking about why you're doing the Camino and what about the Camino is being meaningful for you. And I will never, ever forget this conversation. For me, it was just getting out of the rut. I was having a midlife crisis, and I was only 28. I was, trying to find something bigger, and I was, just kind of just saying things that I felt like were meaningful for me at the time. But there was this one gentleman, and he I will never ever forget this. he was sitting there and he was talking about his life. And he talked about, I've been working at the same company for 40 years. I've been married to an amazing woman for the past 35 years. I have two amazing kids. And I look back at my life and I look back at the 40 years and I don't know if it was worth it. I don't know if I made enough of an impact. I don't know if I was spending my time in the right places. And he just had this moment of regret. And for me, being 28, seeing that, I made a commitment to myself that that can't be me. That won't be me. I cannot let that happen. And to me, that was what the whole Camino experience was about. To me, that's what was the greatest takeaway because it impacted my life so much. I'm not saying that everything is perfect and everything's been perfect since then. I'm not saying that I can't even create a perfect life. But I am saying like that message really hit home for me and it's helped me make some really quality decisions from there. Not spending too much time with people that really aren't helping me in a positive way. Trying to always think about having a mindset of a cup half full. Focus on reading and self development. There's just multiple things that have happened to me since then that I credit to that conversation because I don't want to waste my time. I want to make sure that I'm always moving forward. I want to make sure I'm surrounding myself with great people. And if you're listening to this, you're probably one of those people that are like really close to me. And I love that. And I appreciate you. And so just take this. So the Camino, the journey was phenomenal. I absolutely loved every bit of it. That dinner that night really impacted my life because it gave me a sense of time is time flies by. Time goes quickly, and we got one shot at this current life, and enjoy it, and make those decisions, and do the hard work so that you can live a life that's worth it. And so that's the Camino story. That's really why I did it and what I walked away with. Shout out to a couple friends of mine, Eric Franco and Anthony Grillo, who came and met me at the end of the journey, and we celebrated, and that was phenomenal, and I appreciated that. But yeah, the Camino was an amazing time in my life. I love chatting about it. So if you'd love to learn more, feel free to call in to the line, shoot me a text. Again, the number is 831-471-7888. And so that'll do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, time is really all that we have, and cherish it as much as we can, and have fun with it. The next topic, the next week, we'll be coming out with the next episode. It'll be the top 10 books that I recommend. As I talked about last week, I love listening and reading to books. I'm excited to share the top 10 books that have impacted me and share a couple tidbits on it. But again, thank you so much for joining the podcast. I hope you took something away, and always remember, show up, be consistent, and always try to be better. Thank you so much. Take care.